Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the lab, and also welcome to the new episode of Road to World 2024, where I will be documenting the journey of myself grinding competitive Yu-Gi-Oh TCG and eventually, hopefully, make to the Yu-Gi-Oh World Championship of 2024. That being said, let's start today's episode. So, as many of you guys probably already know, I went to the Philadelphia Regional last weekend and I won it. I went 10 round undefeated for the entire tournament. It was about like 650 ish people. Unfortunately, we had to cap because the convention center couldn't take more people. And then this is so far the biggest Philly regional had happened since COVID. So the store wasn't really expecting more people to come for the regional. I think the last time during September, the last Philly regional, we only had like 300-400. But this time, if we were not capped, we could probably reach around like 750 to maybe even higher. But at the end, unfortunately, we had to cap at 650, which is still a good amount of people. But that being said, it was a 10 round top 64 invite, which means potentially top 64 wool points. So yeah, definitely a good turnout. It's honestly just as big as like a South American YCS, to be honest. And I was very fortunate, went undefeated. Uh, Most of my rounds are relatively easy because, well, first of all, I think my deck choices were good, my non-engine choices were good. Second of all, I was mainly playing against people I know from tri-state, if not just Philly areas. So, like, I had a little bit of information before some game even started. But overall, it wasn't even that hard a regional, and I had fun with it. And I played a relatively non-standard list, a Horus version of Rescue Ace, as many people have already known. I posted already several days ago, right after the regional, on my social medias, and this one of my deck profile from JNC Collectible, my sponsor team, has already been posted like 2 days ago as well. But here is the in-depth analysis of this deck. As you see, most of them are relatively standard. Like the Rescue Ace lineup are just pretty much the standard ratio: 2 Turb, 2 Preventer, 3 Hydrant, Airlifter. Max out Impulse this time because I cut a lot of other random cards to fit the spaces. And then the 2 Impulse Target, Fire Engine, and Fire Attacker. 12. No, that's 13 Rescue Ace monsters. And then max amount of Diabell, and with max like standard line of Horus cards being 3 Mseti, 1 Happy, and 3 King's Arc. And then other cards are also relatively standard. If you've seen the past several episodes, I am a big fan of Sinful Spoils of Betrayal, Severia as a card, and this has been like a key package to, or key addition to the whole Diabell package. And I think the inclusion of this definitely give the deck a different layer of defenses to specific things like board wipes such as Evenly, or just hand traps like Droll. And I think as long as I'm playing any Diabell version of deck, Severia will definitely be one of the cards in my deck for the format. And then the Horus cards are, I would say, the relatively uncommon thing, but it shouldn't be like that. These are broken cards, and from also relatively new from Age of Overlord. These cards are good enough. Let's say, hypothetically, if Wanted and Diabell were not existed from Age of Overlord, they were scheduled for later in the future. I can definitely see this format, this current format, instead of being like a Diabell everything format, be like a Horus everything format. This is how strong these cards, this whole package, it really is. Like in the far, maybe not even far, maybe in the near future, like the next or the 2-3 formats next, like in this year, After maybe Konami addressed some of like Wanted or Diabell cards, we can see everyone tagging Horus into everything. Maybe eventually leading something get addressed like Imseti to Imseti or Zombie Vampire getting banned. Who knows? But this is like normally people think Horus cards is a milling engine. Yes and no. Obviously, they're better in the mill decks because the zombie vampire become more powerful. However, even not as a mill deck, this package still does a lot. Remember the old days where Chaos Ruler was being played in variety different decks, despite more than half of them were not milling decks? Giving out examples such as like Punk variants, where you don't really mill anything in Punk decks. You don't need to mill anything in Punk decks. But you still go through a Chaos Ruler in mid combos just to dig for whatever missing, like hand traps, any good Lion Dark, or potentially I think at that point specifically just Snow or something. I mean, worst case, even adding a Veiler of Chaos Ruler was good back then, right? Similar logic apply here to Zombie Vampire. We are currently in a format where, remember, for some of you who were playing the game in late 2019, remember there was a time during late 19 Sky Striker Orcus format where besides Sky Orc, every other deck were nearly every other deck were playing Engage, the Sky Striker cards. A small package of that was even more copies, more than Hornet Drone. Some of them have like a whole package of like Widow Anchor, Shark Cannon, Afterburner, Jammy Wave, right? That was the time during late 19, right before Engage eventually got banned. We are kind of in a similar format right now, where nearly everyone is utilizing Wanted and Diabell for obviously reason they're broken cards. So with that kind of background settings, Imseti into Zombie Vampire, I don't even need to hit any of my combo pieces. I can easily just hit their Diabell star for my opponent, and that would just turn around my whole combo. So that's like some logic here. And obviously, there are still plenty of good things I can hit. Obviously, my own Diabell star, just Turbulence, Preventer, Airlifter, Hydra, any of them are pretty good, right? And the discard effect for Imseti sometimes just works well with Rescue Ace cards. A lot of people have definitely, for whoever of you have played the Rescue Ace, you guys will realize like Preventer sometimes is kind of awkward. It's obviously a strong card, but sometimes it's hard to send things to graveyard. And utilizing Preventer the best way. Like sometimes in the bad situation, you might even have to Preventer banish things like an emergency, just to able to put monster on the board. However, with Imseti and King Sark, you can easily just pitch whatever you need from your hand. There are games I think specifically, what was it? Oh, during the regional, I had games where I opened both Preventer and Turbulence, but no other Rescue Ace card. Usually this will be like almost a disaster and nearly guarantee this hand being like brick here, right? Because there's no way to gather enough Rescue Ace card in the graveyard for both of them to be summoned. And you need some very powerful other combo pieces to turn on these. However, in my build, all I do is just Imseti pitch like a Turbulence. Now suddenly the game looks very, very easy to play afterwards. And that's just how like some of the synergy is here. And also Preventer is a level 8, which the level itself pairs very well with Horus for Zombie Vampire, specifically for this rank A play. And Preventer, unlike a lot of other things that flows, all Preventer need to say is send to graveyard. Unlike some of other cards saying send from like field to graveyard, like Diabell has to send from owner's hand or field to graveyard, right? All Preventer need to do is just touch the graveyard, which works as a material that's being detached off zombie vampire. So overraying with Preventer has no consequences whatsoever in what I'm going first, what I'm comboing. And the only brick I'm really adding to the deck is Happy, or honestly, any of the Horus one is fine. But there are definitely games where like I draw into an M-City or King Circ at the end of the combo where I don't need to go through Zombie Vampire anymore. Happy become one of the best one out of the other three. Let me see. Yeah, Happy become one of the best one out of like, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, and the water one. As Happy has like the regeneration effect actually posing a decent threat on the board. Fun fact to a lot of people who may have faced Horus decks. It's funny to say, the Horus monsters are way more annoying when they're just sits there. But whenever someone overrate all of them to either some random thing like a Fulton Lord, a Cold Trainer, or even a Zombie Vampire, they are suddenly a lot easier to deal with. But just having these monsters sit there, first of all, they quote unquote cannot be died by battle because King Sark make them immune to, like, make them beat over anything, even when they're attacked, for once per turn. And then they pretty much also cannot be destroyed by Cardifact because King Sark says, only things that target the Horus monsters can destroy them by card effects. But if one, well, usually that means you have to destroy them one by one. But if one dies, every other one's triggers. So no matter how you sequencing your outs to like all the Horus monsters, you kind of always have to let one, maybe even more of them, activate their trigger effect and causing big trouble to the board. And that logic can't even apply to this deck. At the end of my combo, I definitely have just like let these monsters sit there and not even bother overring for a Zombie Vampire at the end of the combo because I didn't need to. And if King Sark stay on my board for more than one turn, these are become very huge B-stick, while also impossible to remove against like a lot of the matchup. I think I played, let me see, I played like 2 cash and a flu matchup where the Horus cards definitely made me survive a lot because surprisingly enough, the Horus cards beat over all the cash monsters, whether just by raw attack or with the effect of King Sark. And the summon or even the King Sark effect, none of these triggers cash monsters. So cash, like even Shangri-La just get sent easily, get outed by Horus. And flu is also the case because King Sark can just let me beat over an M-Pen once per turn for free, since it will send the monster before you even get to the damage step or even damage calc. So it like definitely I think I use a Happy to beat over the M-Pen like very extreme situations. It was definitely pretty nice. So this is like some of the logic of Horus. So in what I'm going first, you can just think they are like an additional summon that I don't know what's gonna be summoned most of the time, but I know whatever be summoned usually will be good because how the rest of the deck are being built. And worst case, they are good Ash bait because you're not letting an M-Seti resolving, searching a King Sark and draw one. They are good Imperm bait because Zombie Vampire is such an absurd card that usually triggers Imperm. Since my opponent don't want to, first of all, they don't want to get their deck like destroyed and let me benefit from the mills. Second of all, they do, like in real tournament, in like game 1 specifically, they probably don't even want to expose what they're playing when they're like already kind of sort of behind, because like they still have the option to just immediately scoop. And also there were so many Diabels in everyone's deck that like they probably like don't want to take the risk of me Zombie Vampire into their Diabel, right? There are things like those which if Ash and Imperm has been baited, then Rescue Ace can just go crazy because there's nothing really stopping it. To be honest, this is one of the race build I played where I care the turb set 4 the least. Why? Because even if I failed the turb set 4, even if they actually held the imperm for it, I still have so many other cards. Enough that was winning the game without turbulence effect. And to be honest, there are quite a few discard outlet for King Sark in the whole deck. Whatever race traps, big race monsters, they can all be discarded. Like even impulse, because I have combos that can like go through sunlight, get it back. I mean, there are 3 impulse in the deck. I can probably easily just draw into another one or just search one. So like a lot of them are just okay to be pitch of King Sark. And also, why did I play 3 King Sark? Because there are so many Joel and Ash in the format. I realized the Horus engine are at the best when you draw King Sark with things like an M-City. So in this kind of situation, you're freely to just stars M-City. If they Ash, cool. There's still enough cards to turn on the Horus engine because King Sark's already in hand. But even they don't Ash, like I just grab another King Sark, then King Sark had to discard another one for happy anyway, so it's perfectly fine for the cost. And in situation of draw, if I want to get another different searching like that's not M-City, I can just get the search. They draw me, cool. M-City is dead, but M-City now just become the cost for the King Sark for me to send happy, and suddenly with just 1 cost, I'm bringing 2 monster back. And because of that, like I think 3 King Sark is probably the best ratio in a format full of Ash and Joel. There were definitely cases where when I was testing, I only had 2 King Sark in the deck, and for example, I opened with like Hydron with M-City. I don't even know which one to start, because if I start Hydron, I get Joel to M-City instead. But if I start M-City, I get Joel. I'm probably not able to get to like. I have to raw hit a turbulence of Zombie Vampire to have access to it. So it could be awkward, but if I open things like Hydron, M-City with King Sark, I can just freely normal some Hydron, grab my turb, they're welcome to draw me, I just King Sark pitch M-City, things like those. So, let me see what else too. Then there are the non-engine cards. Definitely. This is one of the lists where it has very, very low amount of non-engines. Why? Because in this current format, non-engine really sucks. It really does. Like standard non-engines, let's say Ash, Valor, Imperm, those are relatively standard ones, right? They're not particularly good against anything. I mean, Ash is obviously good against Welcomes from Labyrinth, but besides that, there isn't really any decks that lose to a single Ash most of the time. You can obviously argue saying Ash may hinder Rescue Ace in some form way because you shut down their emergency, but Race is a deck that, in my opinion, if their hands are like slightly above average, a single Ash would not stop Turbulence being summoned. This applied to a single Valor as well, where if Rescue's hands are like above average, if they draw multiple copy of their different engine pieces, then playing into or playing around a single negate, it's like very easy for Race. And let alone Valor, Imperm are nearly they're not useless, but they're not useful against things like Lab. Manadium is the other one. I saw some people in the comment section of other videos question me how do I deal with Manadium. Turned out I don't think Manadium really lose to any hand traps besides draw, right? So it's like playing Vader, playing Imperm, playing Ash, even playing Nib. I feel like they're gonna be able to play into it or just not care about it at all. Like there isn't really a specific hand trap that's just good against the entire format. we still have plenty of decks in the format with Lab, Vanadium, Fire King variants, Rescue Ace, and some of other like lower tier ones. And they all take different hand traps in different ways. And standard hand traps, even like a good amount, even I'm able to run like 15, 18 copies of standard hand traps. It's still just like you have to draw the right one, the right timing against the right matchup. And when it doesn't, they're just piece of cardboards, they're blank cards in hand. So I made a conclusion like non-legend cards really sucks at the moment, and there are very few good ones. Things specifically like Super Poly. Super Poly is one of the few cards that do cover all the best decks I just said. Race and Fire King, obviously they're fire centric that get Super Poly here and there. Lab are very vulnerable to Super Poly as well. And Vanadium, despite I'm not running Gear Free the Iron Knight, this guy that requires 2 warriors with different attributes, despite I'm not running that, it's most likely okay for me to still resolve Super Poly against most of their ending board because I don't have any hand traps to make their board smaller. Their Link monster on the top is usually in the form of either Appaloosa or SP Little Knight, where one is wind, the other one is dark, and they usually do put a wind or dark synchro monster on the board in the form of Baron or Disparter. So no matter how they do things, they would be super polyable in different shape or form. The only way is like if they open the really, really weird, they can only get to Baron SP. At that point, Super Poly kind of sucks because I don't have this Gear Free, the Magical Steel Knight. But I think without me hand trap them doing anything, that shouldn't be a big case. Also, even in this situation, SP is still a dark monster, right? Like summoning Diabell and then Super Poly force out the SP and then Super Poly the SP with Diabell. That's still just some value to do. Dealing with a single Baron is like not that hard a thing, in my opinion. Funny enough, like I even found out I can Super Poly Flu, not just with their big birds, but also my Happy because it's a wind guy, and their random like M-Pen or whatever big birds they have on the board. That actually almost happened in the regional I played, and that's why I said like Super Poly is probably, in my opinion, the best non-engine cards because it does have the widest coverage out of anything else. And also, just to back it up, Talon become the other one. When I'm doing MSETI, when I'm doing Emergency and or Diabell and Hydrant stuff, you better throw some hand traps, right? I mean, if not, cool, these become cost for Diabell, cost for King Sark, or just held at the end of it. And going second, obviously, these do break a lot of boards. And randomly taking monster is surprisingly helpful in this deck because Zombie Vampire has a hidden effect. Zombie Vampire, a lot of people know Zombie Vampire has a hidden effect saying like it cannot be targeted with special summon monster from the graveyard. Yeah, that's really the hidden effect that no one really cares. The first hidden effect that no one even know about it is saying if I use cards that owned by my opponent, which has level, using those for the material to summon Zombie Vampire, I can treat those as level 8, which means I can triple tag take any like non-link, non-exceed monster from my opponent, and that become half of a Zombie Vampire. And let's just, to be honest, this deck has a lot of different ways to take cards from my opponent. Several ones being like triple tag, the Boast of the Charmers, Rescue, and I think that's it, right? Yeah, and yeah, those are old ones. I mean, those are still a lot of different ways. In some very specific scenarios, in theory, I can go Hida take one, Dark take one, cool. That's my zombie vampire through both of their monsters. Which is funny when it happens. A lot of people just really have like a what the fuck's happening kind of face when I did that. But it really worked. So yeah, overall, there's even one more funny thing. I didn't do it while my testing buddy resolved it when he doing his testing. He was playing against a Vanadium. He resolved a triple tag later in the line when he's brinking the board. He took his opponent's Despotter, and Despotter summoned like Avisas from their banish pile. Suddenly, he's making a zombie vampire through both of their monsters. And I just found out this story be very hilarious. It actually works. So yeah, so these are really the non-engines and the use of zombie vampire. To be honest, the rest of the extra deck are very standard. Typhoon was, in my opinion, the quote-unquote Vanadium side. It just existed in the extra deck. And with this in my extra and with Dross existing somewhere in my whole deck, doesn't even need to be main at this point. I think I'm not really fear Vanadium even going second. Like, yes, there's no main, there's no hand trap in the main deck, but anything but draw, any hand trap besides draw sucks anyway against Vanadium. And I still have some super polys and triple attack to break boards. I think I did play one Vanadium during the tournament, and it was both games I resolved my triple attack and then just, I think actually OTK'd going second both games without even any hand trap, anything. Just because I resolved triple attack and then didn't even use Typhoon in those two games. So yeah, overall, I don't think Vanadium is that scary as a deck. Like, these some comments saying like how to do is the other like wombo combo. Like, come on, no one's preparing for Dark Worlds. Even like the best preparation I have for Dark Worlds is the amount of copium I can have when the match actually happens. And I think the rest of the extra deck are pretty standard. IPSP, Charmers, Hiso, Selling Apple Access, Sunlight, Elmirage, Linkuriboh, and double super poly target with Go Run Muddragon. Oh, some comment asked, have I ever missed the second SP? Not gonna lie, second SP is the 16th extra deck. Is where Zombie Vampire took the place of. Funny to say, I never really missed it. Because as you may notice right now, I don't have Pot of Prosperity in the deck. I just don't think the deck really needs it. And because I do draw a lot in the form of like Imseti, maybe triple attack, and most likely Hiso and Wanted, I think not being able to draw is the side effect of Prosperity kind of start hurting more and more. So I eventually just cut all the copies with Prosperity. With Prosperity not existing in my deck, my extra deck is usually in a very complete situation that I would not just like having nothing but SP to go into. So I can pull out the right tool at the right timing when I need. So the need for the second SP isn't as important. Also because Horus cards provided so much more link bodies that going first, I can already use Charmers through Zombie Vampire, since I will mill their cards and hitting like a fire like an Ash or just fire decks, or a Dark, which Diabell hopefully, or some other random Dark monster, is very likely to happen. So with these, because I have so many link bodies, turn on the Charmers, and Charmers turn on the Saling. Saling can just give me going to straight to Appaloosa going first, which that's what I do most of the time if I can. Because of that kind of plays, turn one, I barely make SP going first in turn one. My ending usually consists with things like Appaloosa IP, or even Appaloosa Hiso, or just Hiso by itself with other race cards, like standard race combos. So that, I guess that being said, I barely ever miss SP. The only one situation I saw myself could be missing the second copy of SP was when specifically going second breaking boards, I have to make a first SP on the top to maybe like banish some monsters over some back rows. And then I'm trying to link climb after, I have to link away this SP. And when I do that, I will be permanently not have any access to SPs anymore. That could be annoying in like this very specific situation, but it's like such a specific one, and usually I think if I do link this SP away, I'll probably try to like crack everything and just control the board with other things. So the second SP probably isn't needed after. It just a little bit scary of not having another SP available. That fact existing. But overall, it's like not like I know what else to cut for my whole extra deck for the second SP anyway. So I just decided to go with like, yeah, it's fine with one. And throughout the entire tournament, I honestly barely even make the first one. Because the rest of these broken cards just was enough. So yeah, that's pretty much the extra deck. Side deck or consists of a lot of like play sets of specific matchups. Spring Scatter Shot for time. Honestly, don't really have any other better ones. Because Airlifter is already limited. There's not enough force to make Cowboy alive. So the next best option is just 3 monsters into Sprint and for the Scatter Shot. Very rarely, I can maybe even Zombie Vampire with a small chance to hit my Scatter Shot. But that's just a different story. Ash specifically for Lab. Crow specifically for Fire King, and Draw specifically for Manadian, which those 3 are the biggest decks in the format. And then Silent Graveyard, honestly, just a bit of everything. It works against Lab, it works against Fire King, it works against even like Tier. So, pretty much it. And last but not least, a copy of Duster for Mirror Match. That's it. I do use Impulse primarily as my hand trap, so I expect to have something on my board when I start my turn. Therefore, Evenly and Lightning Storm are a bit awkward to play in my side, so I decided to just not have any of them. I think in Race Mirror Match, I can just not have... I'm okay not have Bull Wipes, but draw like a Super Poly. Or maybe even a Triple Attack. We'll do the job similarly. So that's pretty much it for the whole deck. Let's see what else. Oh, there is a replay that it was a replay just to show some combos I do. I mean, I purposely put these cards in the right order. So this is not like a real game or a real opening hand. It's not randomized. So generally speaking, there are things like I mentioned earlier, Preventer could be awkward sometimes in the form of like, if you don't have a good starter, a good Rescue starter, then Preventer probably just doesn't do anything. However, with the help of Imseti can easily just pitch a Rescue Ace monster, and then now suddenly there's a good cause in the graveyard for Preventer. And here, let me see. And then Preventer as a level 8 is also working well with the Horus cards. So in situation where if I want to keep every single thing in my hand for now, and I don't want to discard anything for the second name in Horus, I can just use a Preventer for Zombie Vampire. And Zombie Vampire detaching Preventer is still able to trigger its effect to bring out whatever banish. And Zombie Vampire in this current format, there's a good amount of things to hit. Like my opponent's Diabell, or just my own like Turbo or Hydrant. We're using Hydrant here as an example. And specifically, like, if you really think about it, why is Hydrant by itself isn't as good a starter in a lot of people's eyes in Rescues? Because it required a normal summon. Therefore, you're not able to Hydrant, grab Airlifter, they use Airlifter to grab whatever spell you're missing, either being like emergency or alert. So that's also why a lot of people focusing heavily on utilizing Diabell as an engine, because Diabell provides you a Hydrant without normal summon. Similar cases here. If your zombie vampire hits a Hydrant, it does pretty much similar feeling as like you original into a Hydrant. And therefore, allow you to normal summon this Airlifter after searching off the Hydrant. And the Airlifter can just grab whatever missing. Specifically, usually be alert, grabbing a turb. And then Zombie Vampire is a dark. Other race monster is a fire. That will just turn on both of the key charmers in the deck. And dark and fire monster are probably one of the most popular ones in the current format. So there's plenty of monster I can just take even at turn 1 when I'm going first. Dark, take any monster and that will just turn on Saling. Saling, usually the hardest part to resolve Saling in Rescuer's deck is 1, the number of spells existing on the field or in graveyard. 2, the spellcaster. Both of them can be filled very easily nowadays. Spellcaster Imp City is a spellcaster, which is a perfect target for Saling. And also there are potentially the Diabell star that you may use or you may hit through Zombie Vampire. That's another spellcaster. And funny to say, Saling is also doesn't target because it can also spell summon from hand. So I had my opponent where they, I believe, bestialed my Diabell when I was using Saling, and I just brought back an M City. And the other hard part to resolve Saling is the amount of spells. Usually, the only spells that can easily go to graveyard are just the wanted and sinful spell cards. But now with Horus cards, there are King's Arc. There are the mills of Zombie Vampire. And Saling do count both sides. And hitting like at least 2 spells of top 4 from both sides of a Zombie Vampire is very likely to happen. And that will give you at least 3 because King's Arc will be on the field. So here is where what this is the surprising thing that a lot of people don't say. Usually when you are, hypothetically, if you imagine yourself as the opponent looking at me doing this board, you assume I'm going to make an Appaloosa here, right? With Saling going first. And hypothetically, if you do have a Nib probably have to be used right now. Because otherwise I make a Apple, negate the Nib, and then whatever the other cards, that can just turn on whatever thing. So the second I bring back the Spellcaster of Saling, this is like the best timing for Nib to happen. If nothing happens, well, then there's no Nib from my opponent. So I can just start playing a little bit freely and delay the summon of Apple, which turned out to be what I was doing during the whole tournament. Honestly, Nib isn't even like a good hand trap right now. So like not seeing Nib is not really a surprising thing. And this is what I will say, like, there are honestly plenty of things, even the Tarb being negated. Just from the board, I have, like, a Saling into Apple, and then the other 2 monsters, or honestly, there are 3 monsters here. These can go variety, like IP, or like Hiso, whatever thing I'm missing. Specifically here, like, I'm showing an example, resolving Tarb. And this is the next cool thing I found out to do. The downside for having Saling or the Charmer play is Sunlight Wolf now become kind of awkward. And if Sunlight Wolf isn't really utilizing its full effect, making into Hiso feels like a bit weird. So the replacement is right underneath the Saling. I make Sunlight pointing up, that make Apple on top of Sunlight to trigger it here. Because Apple now open a good amount of zones. I can just link the Hydrant into Link Creeple in a different zone where Apple point to. And suddenly I still get my Hiso, despite these are some very unusual zone placement that you rarely see happens. Because usually you don't get that many link bodies. These are like 8 link bodies on the board. And Funny enough, there are also games where, specifically saying if he's so joined to like a Diabell or Wanted has not been used this turn, I can do things like Diabell sending a trap, and then get myself the Severia, and then assume there's like an emergency in the graveyard either being used, or if I don't need to, I can just pitch out Kingsark. I can just use the emergency to reset the trap that was sent from the Diabell. That was a fun play. I realized that could be done right after I included Severia. And remember, at the very beginning, we were only using Preventer and Imseti for the Zombie Vampire. So Happy was honestly sleeping in the deck the entire time, and now we can just easily mill it and bring it back to the ending board. Now you're looking at this kind of ending board if everything is operating as I want it to. I have an Apple, negate 2 monster effect. I have a Happy, which first of all cannot be died by like non-targeting effect. Second of all, if anything else leave the field first, it will trigger, get whatever I need from the graveyard, usually in the form of like rescue and then preventer. Right? And Hiso already drew, well, it's going to draw the second cards. If it survives, it's going to draw more cards. Preventer, obviously, the second I summon another different race monster in the, by the use of emergency, it can book another one. And then Diabell combined with Severia, this is an Omni Negate for anything, things like Evenly, Lightning Storm, or something else. And the second I use Severia, or if Diabell get forced out by something, Diabell will just resummon it back, reset whatever sinful spell I need, either original or wanted. And last but not least, I still have all the regular Rescue Ace cards, Container Extinguish, and probably the Impulse I added back for Sunlight Wolf. And if this Kingsark, that a lot of people probably at this point already got overwhelmed that forget Kingsark existing on my board, if this Kingsark survives, next turn I'm bring back the Imseti from the graveyard, and I can re-summon this Happy if I just get rid of like Link Away or something. Right? This is such a multi-dimensional setup of a board that almost bring me back to like the tier time, where I just have a full board of monsters with full board of back rolls, shit tons of things follow up in the graveyard with 4 or 5 cards in hand. And that just utilizing how much it can do if all the engines really operating. Realistically, things like that's not gonna happen. Well, you have to draw really specifically well with like almost 3-4 card combos and not get interrupted to get ending board, like absurd ending board like that. But if either of the engine between Diabell or Imseti is resolving with the Rescue Ace cards, you're already getting boards good enough that can win games. Honestly, let alone if just only Rescue Ace cards doing their things, if Turbo resolving set 4, you're already winning more than half of the time, because that's what other regular people were doing. So overall, yeah, this is how this deck really is. I think the Horus engine, they're obviously already expensive, but they are still worth the investment to pick them up. They might not be the best cards right now because they are a little bit overshined by Wanted, by Diabell, by the level 1 Fire Mix, whatever. But in the near future, once they address like Diabell's Snake Eyes, we can definitely see ourselves going to a Horus format where everyone's playing Horus and Zombie Vampire. And you've been warned, those cards could go even higher. Might as well just pick up now before they're too late. And overall, this is my performance at the Philly Regional. Went undefeated. Very satisfied with my performance and this specific list. And that will pretty much conclude my Age of Overload as a whole season, where I worked on a lot of different things. The whole Furnier package at the very beginning, utilizing Draco Sack for Link Bodies. Then the Diabell package that you see here, with Diabell, not only use it as a starter and extender, but also as a pivot point to key interruption like Droll, to set Silveria as a backup plan. And then the last but not least, the Horus package, where not only milling decks, the other decks, you can still use it. These cards turn into Zombie Vampire that can turn on the Charmers of the format. And then Charmers means selling Appaloosa nearly guaranteed. And just those kind of small engines piece of together, I think this is like a good result, good insert to the entire AGOT format. And from now on, I don't have any regionals left for this season. We are slowly going to Phantom Nightmare format. So I haven't really fully finished my research for that. So you probably won't see me posting anything about that for a while. And that being said, if you like this kind of video, if you like this specific deck, if you still have more questions regarding my experience with it, feel free to let me know. Comment down in the comment section. And remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And these videos take long, so it will usually be posted a little bit late than like a lot of other like deck profiles. If you want immediate deck profile, remember check out the JNC Collectibles channel. Usually right after the tournament, those will be posted first, but those will not be as in-depth as videos like this. That being said, I hope you like this, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.